What's going on, Thunder fans? This is Zack, one half of the Thunder guys. Craig is out of town, unfortunately, so I am riding solo tonight for this week's episode of Thunder Things with the Thunder guys. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you are tuning in on Facebook Live, whether you're watching on YouTube after the fact, or whether you are tuned into the Crossover Radio app. Thanks for tuning in to Crossover Radio, Radio with a Purpose. So glad that you were here to listen to me talk about my favorite team in the entire world, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Got just a few things to chat about this week, kind of a shorter show because I am rolling solo. That's okay. If you've got some stuff to chime in with, please, for the love of all that is good and holy, please make me feel good and come talk with me. As a matter of fact, right this very second, I'm posting on Facebook on my personal account. I'm trying to get it up on our Twitter, @TheThunderGuys. Come chat. I'm having a good time. I'm always having a good time talking about the Thunder, even when things aren't quite so pretty. And that's kind of where the Thunder has been sitting lately. And that's all right. Kind of a rough start to the season, and some people were quick and ready to jump ship about as soon as they possibly could. And I'll be honest, it could be much worse, and so I'm not tripping. I'm not sweating it. I am looking forward to better play as the season continues moving forward. So, with that being said, once again, I'm Zack, one half of the Thunder guys. If you're not following us on Twitter, Instagram, give us a like on Facebook @TheThunderGuys. We got a new YouTube channel rolling, so if you're not catching our shows live, then you can always check them out on the good old YouTube. But either way, no matter what way you're checking us out, we would just love to have you in on the conversation. So let's go ahead and jump in. Last night, finally, it only took 5 games. The Thunder finally grabbed their first win of the season. So glad that we could finally get there. It was a frustrating couple of weeks, especially as a Thunder super fan, as I like to call myself. But it's all right. I feel like they have finally gotten over that hump of not quite playing as well as they would like to be playing, and that's all right. Looking back over the past week, obviously played the Boston Celtics on Thursday. Looked really good in the first half. Went into halftime with, I'm trying to remember, I believe it was a 10-point lead. Led by as many as 16 in the first half. I think it was 17 even at one point. It was a 16-point lead at the half. So Thunder played, honestly, their best half of basketball for the entire season in the first half the other night against the Boston Celtics, and then came out in the third quarter, and the defense was just destroyed. There was no chance whatsoever for the Thunder to get a stop, and allowed, after giving up only 34 first half points to the Celtics, they ended up giving up 40 in the third quarter alone, and that's really not something you want to do when you're trying to win your first game of the season. It's just not how you do things. So that's not exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Thunder ended up crumbling down the stretch, had a 3-4 point lead with just a couple minutes to go, and Celtics ended up winning by 6. Very similar to the matchups with Boston a season ago, where the Thunder would lead early and then Boston would come back. Cannot allow that to happen. Definitely can't allow that to happen when you're fighting for wins at any point right now. So hopefully we're going to see some things worked on and fixed moving forward. We'll just have to, I guess we'll have to see what that looks like. So that brings us to last night's matchup with the Phoenix Suns. Now, coming into the game, the Suns had a 1-4 record, had lost their previous 4 games by an average of almost 22 points. So coming in, as a Thunder fan, I have to say, I felt pretty good about Oklahoma City's chances, which was rightfully so. And had a bit of a rough start, I guess you could say. It was kind of even for the first 8 minutes or so of basketball, and then the Thunder offense really started to take off. Defense was really the biggest key to the game. And as the defense found success, the offense found success. And I have to say, I kind of feel like that is going to be the case all season long. If the Thunder is able to be successful on defense, they're going to find opportunities in transition. And that is going to be the key. That's going to be the most important thing, in my opinion, for the Thunder to be able to win basketball games. If they cannot do that, then I don't know how in the world they're going to be expecting to win games. Because let's be honest, this offense is not the Golden State Warriors. This offense is not the Houston Rockets. This offense isn't even the Utah Jazz or the New Orleans Pelicans with the high level that they've been playing. And it's kind of funny that I even say that about Utah because they're a defensive team, but their defense opens up their abilities on offense, and really that's what we need to see from Oklahoma City. As the defense gets better, then the offense will get better, and that's exactly how it's going to have to be moving forward. Defense last night was tremendous through the first really 3.5 quarters, 3 1/4 quarters, something along those lines. But in the fourth quarter, kind of let up a little bit, and it was disappointing. Led by 27 points, I think, at some point in the fourth. Only ended up winning the game by 7, and a lot of that was with the starters out, and I get that. It's garbage time, but even still, I feel like there's some talented backups coming off the Thunder bench, and they need to be able to close out games. No matter who's on the court, they need to not get complacent. Don't get satisfied. Winning a game by 7 is still a win. It goes in the record books as the same as a W, but to win games by 20 plus does a lot in terms of national perception. It does a lot for player morale. It does a lot for the perception of fans. You name it. And to have a 27-point lead be brought down to 7 in less than a quarter is just it really is disappointing. Overall, it's just good to get a win. So, what's the expectation moving forward? What is going to happen this season with the Thunder? I'm not really sure. I've got some things I'd like to talk about with that. Excuse me. But as far as I guess you could say, as far as expectations go, at this point moving forward, I feel like the Thunder are going in the right direction. Am I concerned about missing the playoffs? No. Am I concerned even about being a bottom 5 to 8 seed in the Western Conference? I'm not. It's still early. Now, losing some of these silly games, whenever you look at, especially losing to the Kings, a team that is nowhere near going to be making the playoffs, even losing to the Clippers, who honestly are playing pretty solid basketball right now, but probably not going to be making the playoffs. Those are games that the Thunder cannot afford to lose now or in the middle of the season or at the end of the season. The West is stacked. Wins are going to matter. As we saw last season, the 3 through the 9 seed were all separated by just a few games. And honestly, I expect that type of parity to be the case this year. Maybe even more so. I don't even know. But the Thunder are honestly have the talent and the potential to be a top 3 seed, but they are playing like a team that might not even be seeing the playoffs. And when we go to look at some of the stats that Oklahoma City's dealing with, it's depressing even. I go back and I look at let me just pull up the team rankings in the NBA, and I'm going to throw out some numbers that involve the Thunder. And I mean, you guys hit me back with what you think the Thunder need to work on the most. And I'll tell you right now, there's a lot. First off, as far as scoring goes, even after last night's game where the Thunder actually picked up a win, put up 117 points, still only averaging 104.8, which is 27th in the NBA. That's just not good. Shot really well last night for the first time all season. Ended up finishing the game shooting 50.6% from the field. Still not solid from 3, though. Finished shooting 29.2% from 3, which is just awful. Oklahoma City moved up a few spots. Oh, no, sorry, they didn't. They're tied for dead last right now. They were outright last in field goal percentage yesterday. Still looked like they moved up a few spots, maybe. No, I'm looking at the wrong. Nope, still dead last by a lot in 3-point percent, shooting 24.8% on the season. Next after them would be the Nuggets, and they're shooting 29%. Nowhere near good enough. The 3 ball just isn't there for Oklahoma City. They have maybe a couple of shooters that could be regular knockdown shooters, but the thing is, the mentality has been, hey, we can't hit 3s, so let's just keep shooting them, and maybe we'll start making them. That can't be the case. The Thunder are not the Warriors. The Thunder are not the Rockets. The Thunder are not these teams that can just go on these ridiculous streaks of shooting threes and knocking them down. It's not going to happen. And they need to quit trying to be something they aren't. I've been saying this since last year. Stop trying to recreate the league's best teams. Start trying to innovate and become the league's best team by doing your own thing. I don't know what that's going to look like for this team. My opinion is you play hard-nosed defense, you get out and run transition basketball, and you score points easily that way. If the Thunder can do that, then they will easily start setting a new trend. Defense is almost kind of not cool anymore. And you go back to the late 80s, the early 90s, and some of those, I'm thinking of like the Bad Boys in Detroit. They played hard-nosed basketball, and they weren't just good at defense. They played tough. Guys in the league aren't really tough anymore. I think of a guy like Steven Adams. He's tough. Unfortunately, he had to sit out last night because of left calf soreness. He's actually questionable for tomorrow's matchup with the Clippers. But when you look around, there's not a lot of tough guys in the NBA anymore. And I think part of that has to do with the NBA officiating, with the way that it's going, with calling some of these ticky-tack fouls. It's really hard to body up a guy and play tough physical defense. But even when the officials aren't necessarily calling it your way, if you play a consistent, tough defense, eventually they're going to kind of have to call it one way or the other. And you're going to learn what that looks like. The Thunder has to play hard-nosed defense because, that, to me, that's the only way they're going to get a consistent offense going. There's not a lot of shooting to go around. Paul George is finally starting to hopefully find a rhythm. Alex Abrinas, he hasn't looked too terrible. Last night, who really impressed me the most was Patrick Patterson. He's a guy that did not look good as a starter the first few games of the season. Jerami Grant, he's looked good as the starting power forward the last couple games, and Patrick Patterson has really kind of benefited from coming off the bench. And last night, that was especially the case. Patterson last night, he shot 6 of 10 from the floor, 2 of 5 from 3, and those are the kind of numbers that I want to see out of him. He ended up putting up 17 points in almost 30 minutes of play. Played some solid minutes. Jerami Grant, he started and he shot 4 of 9, finished with 14 points. He put up 37 minutes. I think he actually led the team. Yeah, he led the team in playing time by a lot. Part of that was because he needed to stay in with the young guys there in garbage time at the end of the game. But whenever I'm looking at it, Jerami Grant, he is the starter right now, and he needs to be. I was all on the Patrick Patterson train to start the season, but as Patterson really struggled early, I think he was okay with relinquishing that position, and he's had nothing but good things to say about Jerami Grant. Whenever I look at Patrick Patterson, I see a team player, a guy who wants to do what's best for the team, and it's pretty obvious that him coming off the bench was best for the team. And since he's done that the last 2 games, he's been playing his best basketball. I think that's the way that needs to go. As far as Jerami Grant as a starter, I'm looking at long athleticism, which we all know Presty loves, and I love it too. Adams had to sit out yesterday with, like I said, with left calf soreness, so Nerlens Noel was inserted into the starting lineup. When you look at that lineup, that's just freak athletes, a lot of speed, and Noel played out of his dang mind. He was actually personally my player of the game. If you read our recap last night, I wrote about him and his stats. He just played out of his mind. He finished, I think he was 3rd on the team in points with 20. He shot 9 of 14. That's a Steven Adams type of percentage in the mid-60s. Finished with 15 rebounds. Nerlens Noel, his first ever 20-point, 15 rebound game in his career. And he looked good doing it. He also had 4 steals. He had a block, a couple of assists. He played solid basketball. I think he took a shot to the head at one point. He had to go back to the locker room, and actually right now he's listed as questionable for tomorrow's game with a left sprained ankle. Hopefully going to see him back. Hopefully Adams is going to be back as well. But whatever the case is, I feel like for the first time in as long as I can remember, the Thunder has a solid starting center and a solid backup. Steven Adams is more of a traditional center, whereas you've got Nerlens Noel, who's that longer athletic type, and he can get out, he can run. He played out of his mind, and look, to expect Noel to average 20 and 15 or even get close to that, honestly, that may be his best game of the season, at least for quite some time. That's okay. For a guy to come in, for Adams, who was injured and had that kind of spurt, he played such a big role for the Thunder last night, and as far as his contributions to get the win, that's exactly what the Thunder needs out of a guy like him. They don't need 20 points and 15 rebounds every single night. They need it whenever they need it. The Thunder has players that aren't going to put up big numbers every single night, but to have a player that is capable of doing that thing on any given night, that's going to make all the difference whenever a guy like Adams has to go out with injury. And that's where guys like Patrick Patterson coming off the bench, he's got to be able to be ready to step up. I'm looking at guys like Alex Abrinas, who honestly, he's been kind of a letdown for the season. Last night didn't play well, shot 0 for 5, finished with 2 points off 2 free throws. I've seen his defense really come along, which I think is what has been able to keep him on the court, even whenever his offense hasn't been flowing. But the guy's got to find his shot. I think Abrinas is going to be one of those X factors coming off the bench that if he's not a reliable shooter, then it kind of makes him useless on offense. We think of guys like Andre Robertson, who are only on the court because of their defense capabilities. Abrinas isn't that good of a defender to be able to not knock down shots and stay on the court. He's got to be able to hit those shots, especially when you've got a guy like Russell Westbrook, you got a guy like Paul George, guys that are able to create shots for other players. If those guys can't knock down those shots, then the offense grows stale, and there's not really much that they can do. So, moving forward, like I said, confidence level right now, I still feel good about the Thunder. I'm looking at the next 11 or so games, and out of those, there are 7 teams that are, in my opinion, nowhere near playoff contenders, and those should all be wins. Out of the next 11 games, bare minimum, the Thunder should win 7 of those. Then you look at, there's a matchup with the Warriors in there, a matchup with the Rockets in there. Those are going to be tough games. And then a couple of teams that are fringe, what I would call fringe playoff teams. Realistically, I think 9-2 is doable if the Thunder can play at the level that they are capable of playing at. If they continue playing like they did through the first 4 games, then there's no telling what it's going to be like. And once we get to that 15-game mark, I'll tell you right now, if the Thunder does not look vastly different from Game 1 to Game 15, Game 16, Billy Donovan might be feeling his seat getting pretty hot. And if that's the case, then maybe it's time for him to go. You know, a lot of people wanted to see him gone in the offseason. I've never been a fire the coach type of guy. When Scott Brooks was fired, I thought it was too soon. I didn't think it was necessary. They brought Billy Donovan in. I was like, okay, let's do this. Billy's the new guy. And I've kind of tried to stick by his side for as long as he's been here. And I get it. The coach deserves some of the blame. At the same time, a coach cannot make players make shots, cannot make players make free throws. Some of those types of areas, the coach cannot be held responsible for. But at the same time, when things go wrong, the coach gets the blame. So if things continue to go wrong, maybe it's time to move on. I've had people ask me, who would you put as coach? I'm a big fan of Maurice Cheeks. I think the players love him. I'm not saying that Billy needs to be gone and Maurice needs to be boosted up, but I do think at this point in time, Maurice Cheeks needs to have his voice in those players' ears. That way he can have as much influence as possible, not to turn on Billy Donovan, but to turn to Billy Donovan, if you will. Players need to listen to Billy Donovan. He's a successful coach at the college level, and he's had decent success in the NBA. I think a lot of that has just been overshadowed by the fact that it hasn't been as good as it has been at other times in the past. So with that being said, I'm not saying fire Billy Donovan. I'm not there yet. I am saying that he needs to treat every single game like this could be his last, because honestly, who knows in this world? We saw Tyronn Lue. he got fired from Cleveland after they've had a rough start. Obviously, it makes no sense to me that he has been dealt a pretty terrible hand with LeBron leaving. What I would consider poor management from the front office. The roster is a bit of a mess, but you know the idea is you fire the coach, you get a fresh start. That's not really how professional sports works, but that's kind of the trend, I guess you could say. So, looking around at some other Thunder news, I saw earlier today that the Thunder, they went ahead and exercised their team option on Terrence Ferguson for a 3rd year. That means that next year he will be under contract for the Thunder, so we'll get another year of him. Terrence Ferguson has been one of those guys that fans have kind of split sides on. Personally, I do not think he should be in the starting lineup. I'm a big fan of Hamidou Diallo, the rookie. He did not get to play yesterday. He was benched, and he was rendered inactive because he was late to shoot around. That is definitely what you would call a rookie mistake. Can't make those kinds of mistakes for a young fella. He's learning. Hopefully he learned his lesson and he doesn't do it again, because I think he's a guy who is in a position to do a lot for the Thunder and grow very quickly as a player, grow his skills and his talent level. I love the guy. I'm a big fan of him, and I would love to see him I would love to see him improve and do some big things for Oklahoma City. With that being said, I still like Terrence Ferguson. I think he's got a lot of potential. He could stand to gain about 20 pounds and look more like an NBA player. But for right now, he's the starter, and that's what we're going to have to roll with. If that's where Billy Donovan wants him, then I want to see him succeed. I never want to see a Thunder player be unsuccessful. But if he's going to remain in the starting position, he's got to start offering more than then, just a little bit of defense here and there and a couple shots here and there. Yesterday, against the Suns, he didn't look too terrible. Let's see, looking at his numbers really quickly. He shot 3 of 6. He was 0 for 2 from 3, which isn't great. Needs to see some improvement there. But he he had 2 rebounds, 2 steals. Did have those 6 points on 3 of 6 shooting. Only played, I say only, he ended up playing 27 minutes, which is not bad. Not a lot of guys got to fill in outside of garbage time with Diallo being out of the game, which is kind of disappointing. Like to see a little bit of more Deontay Burton, two-way player. TLC, Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot finally got to see his first entrance in an NBA game. Didn't play much. Only played 60 seconds, 1 minute, put up 1 shot as soon as he came in, and didn't get to do a whole lot, so that was disappointing. I'd like to see some more of him moving forward. Okay. Besides that, as I mentioned earlier, Steven Adams dealing with some left calf tightness. Billy Donovan said he was made aware of the situation about 40 minutes before tip-off last night. About 20 minutes later was told that he would not be able to start, probably not going to be able to play. He ended up not playing. I felt like the Thunder did a really good job of adjusting considering it was a last-minute scratch. Nerlens Noel, like I said, came in, played outstanding basketball. He is also listed as questionable for tomorrow night's matchup with the Clippers. He's got a left ankle sprain. Hopefully he will be able to return from that. Hopefully Adams will be good to go, ready to start. We'll just kind of have to see what that looks like. My guess is that they will be game time decisions unless they just look awful at shoot around. We'll kind of have to wait and see. Play that by ear. Looking ahead, weekly forecast, the Thunder has what I would consider to be hopefully a pretty easy week. Kind of just depends on how you look at it. Tomorrow night, Oklahoma City host the Los Angeles Clippers, who they lost to in the second game of the season. Really need a win. Need to start stacking those up. The Clippers have honestly, they've played well beyond what I would have considered them to be. They've beaten Houston twice already. The first one was only by 3 points at home, but then they went to Houston and blew them out by 20. I don't know how that happens. I look at the Clippers roster, and I'm thinking there's not a ton of star talent there. Tobias Harris has really been playing out of his mind, what I would consider. Got the guy on my fantasy team, and he's been putting up some ridiculous numbers for me. Shooting 40% from 3, 50% from the field, putting up almost 22 points a game, almost 9 rebounds. He's playing solid. Clippers leading scorer, he scored 20 points, I believe, in every single game so far. I feel like he's going to be the primary threat. Gallinari, Danilo Gallinari had a solid game against the Thunder. I do not think he's going to shoot at that type of level again. He is shooting 43% from 3. But besides that, I feel like the Thunder is top to bottom the better team. They're going to have to lock in and be more prepared, take the game a lot more seriously. Cannot afford to lose to them a second time, especially this early in the season. Need to start winning some games. Need to start getting a leg up on some of these other teams. As I'm looking at the NBA standings, let me find those really quickly. Okay. There's a few surprises here. Western Conference, obviously the Warriors sit atop at 6-1. The next couple teams are doing really well. The Nuggets and the Pelicans are both at 4-1. They just lost their first game of the season, so they've had solid starts. The Jazz are playing well as expected. They're 4-2. But then you've got the Clippers at 4-2 as well. Like I said, I did not expect them to be looking this good this early. I do not think they're a playoff team. We'll have to wait and see. I very well could be wrong with that. The Trailblazers sitting at 3-2. They're doing okay. The Grizzlies, a shocker at 3-2 as well. Spurs at 3-2, and then you've got the Kings at 3-3. Every other team in the West is sitting with a losing record. That includes the Lakers, who are 2-4. That includes the Timberwolves, who are 2-4. And then you've got the Thunder and the Rockets are both 1-4. Okay? If you had told me 5 games into the season that the Thunder and the Rockets would have only 1 win on their resume, especially looking at their schedules, I would call you a liar and laugh in your face, but that's the unfortunate truth. I think the Thunder and the Rockets are both going to be top 3 seeds with the Warriors at the 1. So, listen, the way that a season starts is not a direct indicator of how a season ends. Is it important to start strong? It is to an extent. It's far more important to finish strong and go into the playoffs on a hot streak. So would I trade this rough start for a good finish? Absolutely. Nevertheless, want to see the Thunder start stringing together some wins. Tomorrow night, I would have to say I expect the Thunder to win in convincing fashion. I'm hoping that they are embarrassed after the performance in the second game of the season. Hopefully going to put on a better one tomorrow. I'm trying to see. I don't think... Well, never mind. They do have odds up for tomorrow's game. Right now, the Thunder is sitting at 1-point favorites. I'll take that. I'm going to go ahead and predict about a 7-8 point win. I think it should be better than that, but the way the Thunder has been playing lately, I'm not too confident. I do think they get the win, though, start stringing some together, pick up a win there. Moving on from there to take on the, almost said the New Orleans Hornets, the Charlotte Hornets, who are sitting at 3-4, I believe. Let me take a look here at the Hornets. Yeah, they are 3-4. They've not looked too impressive. Opening night had a 1-point loss to the Milwaukee Bucks, who are the top team in the East right now, undefeated at 6-0. They've got wins over Orlando, close win against Miami in Miami, lost by 21 in Toronto. They lost to the Bulls once in Chicago, then defeated the Bulls the very next game by almost 30. It's a weird turnaround. And then lost in Philadelphia by 2. So they've played some close games against some good teams, and they've looked bad in some games as well. They've got a lot of talent. I think Kemba Walker, I believe he's one of the best point guards in the game. Severely underrated. He's actually averaging almost 32 points a game right now. Outstanding for him. Outside of that, though, they don't have a ton of talent. He kind of is the guy for them, and I think we could have ourselves a good old point guard battle between Russell Westbrook and Kemba Walker. Still, I expect the Thunder to pick up a win in Charlotte. I think the Thunder are the better team there. Next up on Friday, this game will actually be televised on ESPN. Thunder travels to Washington to play the Wizards, and the Wizards are off to a rough start themselves. They are 1-5 right now. They play the Grizzlies tomorrow. So far, they have lost to Miami by 1, Toronto by 4, knocked off Portland by 1, got smacked by Golden State by 22, lost to the Kings by 4, and then got murdered by 32 against the Clippers. So they played some really close games and then looked ugly against the Clippers in Los Angeles. Once again, there's a lot of talent on this team, but they are going through some serious struggles, just like the Thunder are. Between John Wall, Bradley Beal, and Otto Porter Jr., I mean, there's a lot of talent right there. I feel like Otto Porter Jr. has been playing well below his potential lately. John Wall's kind of been struggling. Regardless, I feel like the Thunder should pick up another win there, and then that will get us through the week until Thunder hosts the New Orleans Pelicans next Monday. That will be a monster matchup. We will actually be covering that one a little bit more detailed next Monday for our show, prior to the 7 o'clock tip-off. So you can tune in for our show at 6. We will finish just a couple minutes before 7 to get ready for tip-off, and then you can jump in on the conversation with us on Twitter. Remember, follow us at the Thunder Guys. But anyways, so as far as these next 3 games, listen, I would not be remotely surprised if the Thunder were to go 3-0. I also would not be surprised if they lost 1 or maybe even 2 of them. If they lose more than one of these next 3 games, I don't really know what the repercussions could be. Like I said earlier, Billy Donovan's got to start worrying about some of this stuff. He can't just keep making the same excuses. We didn't get out in transition. We didn't make good, shots aren't falling right now. We didn't take good shots. Didn't make good passes. Listen, it's the same little one-liners. I get it. You got to say whatever you got to say to please whoever's listening. That's fine. But enough is enough. It's time to start knocking down shots. It's time to start taking care of business. All right? So, I think that's going to go ahead and let me take a look here. Yeah, I think that's everything, guys. So, I don't believe I've got anything else for you. Like I said, shorter show this week. You're welcome. Craig is gone, so it's kind of hard to have back and forth when you're sitting here just talking to yourself. I'm sure some of you know all in all what that is about. But anyways, whether you've been watching on Facebook Live, whether you watch this after the fact on YouTube, you've been listening on Crossover Radio with a Purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Like I said, my name is Zach. I'm one half of the Thunder Guys. Give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube. And do all those cool things. Let us know what you think. I've been throwing out my opinion here for a couple of years now, and I love to hear what other people think. It's funny because when the Thunder are doing poorly, I get text messages out the wazoo. Everybody wants to know, what's wrong with the Thunder? What's going on with the Thunder? And I'm like, are you watching the games? They're just not very good right now. I don't think that's going to be the case moving forward. I think everything's going to be just fine. If you're freaking out, it's all right. Take a chill pill, get you a cup of coffee, sit down, relax. It's going to be all right. We got a long season ahead of us. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I'm super excited to see what's going to happen with this season. You guys need to be excited because there's no telling what's going to happen in the long run. So, once again, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next week at the same time. Monday night, 6 o'clock, right here, Facebook Live, Crossover Radio. Whichever way you want to tune in with us, I'll be glad to be here. Craig will be back, and I won't have to sit here and talk to myself. So, you guys have a good week. Stay thundered up, and we will catch you next time.